The Real Deal Show, brought to you by ebodyboarding.com and Tribe Boards.
Hey everybody, Jay Reale along with Vicki Reale. Hi Vicki.
Oh, hi.
I'm so used to shaking people's hands. Should we just like give a passionate make out? The Real Deal Show back at you, first episode of 2026. It has been a long time since our last episode back in November, maybe earlier than that, of 2025.
Someone broke their neck.
Yeah, I had a little accident, as you may have seen on our YouTube channel and Instagram, that prevented me from focusing on doing podcasts. But here we are, 2026. And I wanted to start off 2026 by talking about bodyboard design. This is a topic that I get asked about a lot by our customers. There's discussion on Reddit and other online forums about board design and how it's changed over the course of bodyboarding. Bodyboards, of course, invented by Tom Morey way back in 1971, the boogie, as he called it, eventually when he started producing them. They've come a long way since then in many aspects, but in other aspects, they haven't changed really that much at all, to be honest with you.
I mean, I remember riding my first boards, even in Hawaii, mine were 42.
Yeah, 42 inches. Yeah. So that's an interesting...
And now I ride a 39, so...
Yeah, good point. And we'll touch on that for sure, which, you know, diving right into this is what's known as a Morey original. Now, this is not the very first bodyboards that were sold. The first ones were in a kit. Are you familiar with the bodyboard kits that Tom Morey sold by mail order out of Surfer magazine way back in the day?
The newspaper ones? Is that what you
mean? No, that was the first one he built in 71.
Right.
He used newspaper and iron and a knife, but when he started selling them to the public, it was a kit, and you mail ordered it through an ad in the magazine, Surfer magazine, and it came in basically in a bag that had like the core and the skins and like tape, and you literally had to like glue the skin to the core and then sealed it with, it was basically like electrical tape, and cut, and trim it yourself. So it's very rudimentary in the way those early boards were sold, and they took off so much that Tom started a factory in Carlsbad, California in the mid-70s, making boards very similar to this. And because he was a member of the Baha'i faith, they have a different calendar, and he would put the Baha'i year on the board. I don't know what 136 corresponds to. If you know, you can look it up. Put it in the comments below here on YouTube.
Maybe
if you're watching on YouTube.
Maybe we should bring back a kit bodyboard.
The kit bodyboard.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
People can make their own.
You just gave everyone the idea. They're going to steal it.
Okay, we'll
Good luck with that. A kit. Yeah, you want to build your own board out of a kit. It sounds fun. So the very first bodyboards were made with polyethylene foam, and they used different skins on the bottom. They used something called L200 foam initially, some of the early boards, which was kind of a slick foam, but it was very delicate. It would chip super easily if you just knocked it on the corner of a table or something. But it was kind of unique. It gave it a really cool look.
What boards had that?
Yeah, the original Moreys, and they made them in two sizes back then. They made like a 5200 cc and a 3200 cc, but eventually, just for production reasons, they switched to a polyethylene bottom skin, which curled up to the rails, as you can see on this, and a polyethylene deck skin. And they learned how to heat laminate the boards together. Now, the initial bodyboard shape was not too far off of this one that you see here as compared to the very first board that Tom ever built in 1971. The main difference was the length. The very first bodyboard, or boogie as Tom called it, was something like 50 inches long, maybe 52 inches. It was huge, because there was no point of reference. But eventually, the size came down strictly because of postal regulations. They figured out that if they had boards bigger than 42 inches, they had to go in bigger boxes and the U.S. Postal Service wouldn't ship them.
Really?
So they reduced the size to 42 to 43 inches long to get under those postal regulations. And that became the standard length of a bodyboard.
So is that what this one is?
I don't know if this one's actually 42 inches long. Vicki's going to size it up.
I think so.
She thinks it's about a 42. So they also did make a smaller one initially in those first production runs that was very narrow. And then they made the bigger one here. And these ones sold for many years. And these were kind of the standard, very flexible board. This has a PE core. There's no stiffeners, no channels, no slick bottom.
I'd like to try this.
Yeah, so, and they were kind of thicker. Boards back then were thicker. Dow made the core, Dow Chemical, they made the core material. And that's where all the materials came from.
The rocker in that thing.
Back in those early days. You can see the rail is basically like an 80-20, maybe even a 90-10.
90-10.
Very big bottom rail, the thinking being that the bigger the rail, the better it's going to turn, because the rail creates friction on the water that makes you turn.
And how's
so
this Moray Boogie leash?
Yeah, that's an original Moray Boogie leash
gosh.
with a rubber tubing and a nylon cord like this one on the inside of that rubber tubing, so it would have a stop point when it got to the end of the rubber tubing.
That's classic.
Stretching out, it would get to the point where the nylon cord was completely straight and it would stop flexing. No padding at all on the wrist strap.
No.
But that was the only thing going back in those days. We're talking, this is late 70s. Then board design changed a bit. What's the first board you had, Vicki? Do you remember?
I think it was my mom's, and it was a Mach 6.
Okay.
Is that the orange one? Mach,
Yeah,
was there a Mach 4?
well, they had different colors.
Mach
so
4.
the Mach 6, it had a slick bottom.
It did, yeah.
And you guys in Australia call it the Mach.
Mach 6.
Yeah, now Mach is, of course, not of course, maybe you don't know this. I think his name was Ernst Mach. He was a German aeronautics guy, and they developed a speed scale named after him. Mach 1 was the speed of sound at sea level.
So who came
Mach
up
2
with these
was
names?
double that, Mach 3, and
Back
so
then?
forth. It was
Was it
just
the
in the
Moray?
aeronautics world, because the Germans
I know,
were very
but
prominent.
I mean for the board. Who was
Well, this wasn't a Mach, of
I
course,
know.
but eventually the marketing team at Kransco, who bought the brand off of Tom around 1979, 1980, they started developing new boards and came up with all those marketing names. Obviously, Mach is attractive because it's speed. You think of speed, Mach 1,
right.
Mach 2, the speed of sound.
Yeah.
But the next progression after this original board was the Proline Red Edge. Now, the Proline Red Edge was essentially exactly like this. Square tail, just like this, because that was the standard tail design back then. Nobody knew better. But it had a denser skin on the bottom, a higher density polyethylene.
Like
it was called that's a slick bottom.
Oh, yeah.
This is an 8-pound polyethylene, and it had double rails. So it had 2 rail pieces laminated together to make the board extra stiff. That was a bit of a groundbreaking thing. Even though we weren't into slick bottoms yet, Tom Morey was experimenting with putting slick surfaces on the bottom of bodyboards with Mike Stewart back in those days, trying to, kind of build the future.
On the Big Island.
Yeah, on the Big Island. So Mike would take these things out, and that's well documented if you look at some of the interviews with Mike from back in those days. So the Proline Red Edge came out around 1979, and it was the cream of the crop of bodyboards. Another company came up around that time called Surecraft, and they made the North Shore board, which had a built-in handle and a kind of a concave bottom that was developed by Jack the Ripper Lindholm.
So out of Oahu.
Yeah, so that company, I think they're based in California, but they really promoted the brand in Hawaii. They had a pipeline event, which I did a podcast about. If I can remember, I'll put the link on that podcast down in the comments below for you YouTubers. And I did a whole podcast with the guy who ran that event, and he talked about that company and how they kind of like were coming up the ranks. So Maury was concerned. They were like, oh my gosh, this Surecraft company has taken our Proline Red Edge and they've raised it up a notch. They put the built-in handle and they have contours on the bottom. Ooh, that was unheard of.
The channels, no?
No, it was like a big kind of hull. It had bumps on either side of the bottom and a kind of a recessed area in the center. So it wasn't channels. It was like a concave bottom almost. Jack Lindholm developed it. So they sold those and they were gaining traction. Maury, I'm sure they saw a dent in their sales because people wanted the latest and greatest. I actually got, my first board was a Proline Red Edge. Then I got a North Shore when they came out. And it was pretty amazing. It was stiffer, but again, 42 inches.
Yeah,
that was it. You couldn't get other sizes in bodyboards. So then 1982, the Maury marketing team and the designers, particularly a guy named Steve Schneider and one other guy that worked for that company under the Kransko ownership. Kransko is a big toy company that bought the Maury brand and the Churchill brand back then, and as I said, late 70s. They found a material that was used in stables in the horse world, and people used to line the bottom of stables with this material called Surlyn because it was very durable and slick and easy to wash horse poop off of.
No way.
So it only came in one color. It was a dark brown, almost looked black, because it blended in with the horse poop, right? So they'd hose it off. And somebody somehow found this material and found out about it at Maury, and they said, this would be perfect to laminate onto the bottom of a bodyboard. It had like a little foam backing that was made of polyethylene. So they figured out we could heat laminate this foam backing onto the core of a bodyboard and make a slick bottom bodyboard. And they did that, and they called it the Mach 7.7.
And where was that made?
So, well, it was made at that time. Kransko was based in San Francisco, but
So they had a factory there.
Yeah, so no, they didn't. The factory was in Mexico, in Tijuana. So they would send guys down there to build boards, and I'm not sure where they actually built the very first Mach 7, but they also had an office in El Monte under the Whammo umbrella because they had also bought that brand. Kransko had the Whammo brand, which made frisbees and hula hoops and all kinds of other toys. So
someone sent that slick maybe down to Mexico and said, put this on a board, let's test it.
Exactly. So they put out the Mach 7 in 1982. And the Mach 7...
Game changer.
It was a game changer. So I've talked about this in past podcasts, the very first pipeline event that I competed in 1982.
Oh, you all had to ride them.
Well, no, not yet. The board had just come out, and some of the Hawaiian guys had them. I had one because I was from Maryland, and they had already come out there that past summer. But the international riders didn't have them. So they were on the old super flexible boards like that original I showed you. And it was the difference was very evident in the riding. The guys in the Mach 7 were way faster, and they could, turn the board on a dime, whereas the old ones were flexing when they'd bottom turn, and it was just a night and day difference.
Had the rail ratio changed there?
Yeah, so the Mach 7, the initial brown bottom, or as they call it, black bottom Mach 7, still had an 80-20. Yeah, it had an 80-20 rail, very huge bottom rail. So no, they hadn't got the clue on that one yet. And they made those boards, the Mach 7, for a couple of years with that bottom color, but they found that it would get so hot in the sun, it would bubble. And that was a huge warranty issue. So then somebody came up with the idea to switch it to an orange bottom. So then the orange bottoms came out, very bright colors. I mean, this was the 80s. And the orange bottom just fit in with the culture at the time. and they started tweaking the design features of that board. They refined the rails to maybe more like a 70-30. And then they
Were they
changed.
always yellow?
The deck was always
Yeah.
yellow on those initial Mach 7s, and then they changed the shape to more rounded, whereas the initial black bottom Mach 7 had a very high wide point
Boxy.
and a wide nose and a really drawn in tail. But they had also added the crescent tail to the Mach 7.
Square? No.
The idea being that it would lock your hips
Yeah.
into the tail of the board so you wouldn't slide off either side. So that was, the Mach 7 was really kind of revolutionary in modern bodyboard design. In particular, not just the slick bottom, black bottom, but eventually the shape of the orange bottom became the benchmark
Who was
to which they were
making
all
these
designed.
changes?
Yeah, it was the Mori
their design
designers
team.
and the team riders
Yeah,
at the
okay,
time. We're talking guys like Keith Sasaki. You had, Pat Caldwell, Ben Severson, all of the
Good
kind of
minds,
upper
yeah.
echelon of the sport of the time were giving them feedback for design changes, and it became the the starting point for every bodyboard design that followed it. So that led to other boards that came out at the time. One of the issues with the Mach 7, it was a polyethylene core. Again, just one size, came in one size. But one of the issues was they would, especially in warm water, they would get really flexible and they would crease. They would crease out super easily.
And they'd stay banana once they were bent.
Yeah,
too,
well, they'd
right?
hinge on the crease, so that was a problem because people were like, I just spent, at that time, it was like $80. I spent $80, man, and I creased the crap out of my board. Now it's like a hinge right where the crease is. So, company out of Hawaii, Turbo Bodyboards came out, and this is Russ Brown. Captain Turbo, as he eventually became known.
The Turbo 911?
Yeah, so this was the 911. Russ Brown was a car guy. So of course the Porsche 911 was a car that he had. So of course he named a lot of his boards after cars or aircraft. He was also a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. So he was very much interested in solving the problem of boards that were too flexible. So he made the exact opposite. He made these uber stiff boards, Turbo brand, and he put these hard PVC bottoms on the board, and which allowed him to even put fin boxes in the boards. So some people would, put fins in them. These are actually specialized fins that have holes in them that was supposed to allow you to do 360s more easily. And he had additionally added a vinyl deck skin.
Yeah, that's
the idea
nuts.
being no rash. But the problem with the vinyl deck skin, when this gets wet, it's basically like pouring castor oil on a linoleum
super
floor.
slippery.
Super slippery. So you have to wax it, and the wax did not stick too well to this material.
There's no wax on this.
But this board is very, very, very stiff. Solved that problem. But then people started to realize,
rocker in that thing too.
yes, tons of rocker in that. So
my God.
that was one thing, is back in those days when they figured out how to heat laminate boards, they did not have consistent construction. So you could get whole production runs where the boards were bananaed or rockered. They just didn't have it wired because it was kind of a hand-done process where they have to pull the board through the laminator, and how they pull it through, how fast they pull it through, controls how much rocker or no rocker the board has. And that process isn't going to be consistent from board to board or even person to person. So it really affected the rocker of the board. So not every board was the same. We would have to look through boxes and boxes of boards to find the flat ones.
Oh, funny. Let's talk about leashes. Did everyone always wear a leg leash?
No, so obviously we saw that original at the beginning,
Oh,
wrist
that's
leash.
right,
That was a
yeah.
wrist leash, and that was the standard. But as people started to drop knee and even stand up on boards, wrist leashes were a problem because, your hands way up here and it would...
So maybe Jack Lindholm would be...
Yeah, somebody would, Jack Lindholm
yeah.
was one guy that used a leg leash. I used a leg leash in the 80s. Because for drop knee, I found that I didn't want anything getting in the way of my hands. So yeah, there was a kind of a movement towards leg leashes that kind of came and went. Although still to this day, you and I, we get calls from people, I'm old school, man, I want a leg leash.
I want a straight leash.
Okay, no worries, dude.
Yeah.
And leash plug placement was all over the map. I mean, this to me is a horrible leash plug placement because it's right where your forearm goes. So you don't want the leash right under your arm. But back in those days, it was the Wild West, man. People put stuff anywhere they wanted. There's a lot of experimentation. So the Mach 7, followed by this as a stiffer option, but people quickly realized you need some flex for the board to turn properly. And so these were great in super tropical water or people that really beat up their boards, but not so great for really high performance, high speed riding and maneuvering.
Yeah.
And that is when we moved on to the Mike. You want to pull that one down, the Mike Stewart board there?
Oh geez, this bad boy's thick.
Yeah, so again, another board that's 42 inches. And I want to point something out as we get to this point. Let's talk about thicknesses. Now this was a primo high performance bodyboard of its day. This came out probably early 90s. It is a polyethylene core because it's before anybody was using polypropylene, and there was a few companies using Arcel at that time. Would you ask, what was your question?
Is this Surlyn?
Yeah, this is a Surlyn slick, and mesh had come into play as a stiffener at this point.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
So slick mesh, which by the way, Maury called, when they were developing it, called it performance chicken wire. Because that's essentially what it was. It was plastic chicken wire.
Wow, that's a high-tech name.
And then they called it X-Flex mesh. And they put it under the slick to add stability to the board. This was just before the advent of stringers to keep boards from over-flexing. But bodyboards back in this day were very stiff. So I'm using this, this device here.
There's no stringer in this, right?
No stringer, just mesh.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so if we measure the thickness, and this was a high performance top of the line board back in the day. If I measure the thickness of this board in millimeters, this board is 65 millimeters thick.
That's crazy.
Okay, so think about that now.
Yeah.
This was what we all rode, myself included. Probably you rode a board very similar to this. 65 millimeters thick, 42 inches long. And we didn't know better.
Yeah.
I mean, these worked great for drop knee because they were so buoyant and stable. But, you know, if you were a little rider and you try to ride this in big waves, good luck sinking your edge into the wave face to bottom turn. Just because, half your body's up out of the water. But this was a standard thickness board of the 80s into the all the way through the late 90s. This was a standard thickness.
For someone like Mike, though, who's tall and big adult,
sure, bigger rider, sure, that would be good. But it's funny that nowadays, a 60 millimeter board, which is 5 millimeters thinner than this, is a high volume board. And I still get guys that'll come in here and I'll say, you need a high volume board. How thick is it? 60 millimeters thick. Oh man, no way. That's too thick for me. And I always say, well, dude, how long you been riding? If you've been riding for 30 years, what you rode back in those early days was way thicker than this.
I wish we could still get some like this.
We could get them made. Yeah. So, yeah, the point is, you know, thickness was another dimension that was not even thought about. It was basically a product of the materials. So back then, you had 1/4 inch skins laminated onto like a 2 and maybe 2 1/4 inch thick core. And they didn't adjust the thickness of the core. They just came from Dow Chemical in these slabs and they would just shape it. They wouldn't skive it down or thin it down. And then the skins, as I said, they were thicker back then. Now we use like 1/8 inch skins. Now that back then they used 1/4 inch skins. And so boards were thick. Still at this point, channels hadn't really come into the whole thing.
And this is like a This is not even 60-40 yet, is it?
Yeah, so this is still like
a 80-20
maybe 80-20. Yeah, so very big bottom rail once again, and we've all seen old clips of Mike Stewart ripping on these things. So obviously they worked, but I'd love to see him on one of these now.
Yeah.
Compared to what he rides, you know, to see like how Mike Stewart rides on an old board.
And that was a 42 also, right?
That was another 42. Then Maury started getting a little spacey. They wanted to experiment. So they went with the vinyl deck for a couple reasons.
Bottom color.
Yeah, so, but let's look at the deck. Yeah. So the deck skin, they really liked the vinyl because they could print custom graphics on it, which you couldn't do on polyethylene. So they were doing these really cool bright graphics because they knew that they attracted people's attention in the store, on the shelf, and the vinyl was it. But again, we pointed out earlier on that turbo, vinyl, not so good for holding wax.
Slippery.
And slippery. And we talked about fins on the bottom of bodyboards. Popular in the 80s, but waning in popularity because all the top riders did not use fins. They wanted to be able to release the board for 360s and high performance maneuvers, and fins on the bottom, skegs as we call them, got in the way.
This is classic.
So,
you pull a little lever and the skegs pop out.
Right. So that's the Mach.
These are little though. Look at little.
They are little skegs, so there's still a little bit of looseness in the tail. You could probably still release it and do a 360, but with more effort, of course.
So the idea was, if you were going to go for a 360, you'd adjust it?
You would, obviously you couldn't do it on the fly.
No, you couldn't.
You would, let's say, someone like me that drop knees and prones. For drop knee, I might want the fins.
So depending on the conditions
yeah,
of the day.
the conditions,
okay, I'm going to pop them out today.
Right. But classic. You can see when you pop these up, this thing here, not so comfortable in the stomach. This plastic plate that's on here.
No.
But it was a kind of a novelty thing. But the other part of this is that sand would get in this mechanism and they'd break. So there's a lot of warranty issues with this board.
What about the screws too?
Yeah, there's screws, hopefully stainless steel, in which case they wouldn't rust. But
so funny.
Yeah, so this board had a short life in the Maury line.
And Josh just bought this for $50, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, exactly. And you see these floating around VBC every now and then. Vintage bodyboard collectors, people want to buy, sell, and trade these old boards. The Mach 20 RS stands for retractable skegs.
No way. So what year was this?
This one came out, again, probably right around 1990, 91. Lasted a year or two, and then vanished from the line. So yeah, but again, you know, thick board, 90-10 rails, just crazy, you know, rail setup there. So once this board kind of came and went in the 90s, then the, excuse me, the crux of bodyboard design started to turn towards how can we make the board more durable, perform better, what can we add to the board? And so that's when people started experimenting. Ben Severson, in my eyes, one of the first guys to experiment with different board sizes.
What about channels? Does that come in yet?
Well, let's talk about sizes first, since I brought that up. Right. So initially, as we pointed out, everybody was riding 42-inch boards. Then companies started putting out smaller boards. Maury, for example, put out the Mach 4, the Mach 6. And then, you know, BSD, or BZ, I should say, who Ben rode for at the time, started putting out a smaller version of Ben's board.
Bobby Zabad?
Well, Bobby Zabad owned the brand at the time, but Ben was designing the boards. And so, yeah, so board sizes started to change. People started to get very savvy that, okay, I'm a smaller rider, I need a smaller board.
Did you?
I did with Maury because at that point I was starting to design my own signature board. Right, Initially they gave me a 42-inch Reale Mach 7 SS, which was not my design at all. But that was their marketing decision. That would be my signature board. And then eventually they let me design my own board from the ground up, at which time I reduced the size of it. to be my preferred size, 41 inches, 41 and a half. They were all kind of within that range. What size board did you ride eventually? Did you switch to smaller boards at some
40
point?
inch. Yeah. Now I'm 39, so
Yeah.
smaller.
So eventually you had an arena board. You were sponsored by Rio Pipo, and then
I think they just gave me stock boards, and they were all around 42. I remember seeing pictures of me with giant boards over my arm going, I can't believe I rode that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then with Arena, did you had smaller boards with them, or you're still riding really big ones?
I did. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
It was the Mantas. I think they gave me stock Mantas before that, and then I realized I need to go smaller.
Yeah, so, the market got savvy to, we need to have different boards for different size people. Also, boards, the rails changed, more of a 60-40 rail. People figured out 90-10 or 80-20, a little slow because of the friction of the bottom rail. So let's reduce the bottom rail a little bit and increase the speed of the board, but not too much. And then, let's add channels to the bottom of boards because those increase the traction on the wave face. And, let's make the board last longer. Let's put instead of just mesh, like we saw on the Mike Stewart Mach 7.7.
Put a rod through it, like
let's add
surfboards.
a
They
rod.
probably mimicked a lot of this from surfboards.
Yeah, right. So, the first stringer board that I recall was the Mach 10, which had 3 graphite stringers in it. They were slats,
Dang,
like
stiff.
they were like a yardstick.
Oh.
So they weren't tubular stringers. They were flat like a yardstick, and there was 3 of them in that board. And I remember actually taking some of my Mach 7s, because that's a board I liked. The Mach 10 was a little too wide. And I would dissect a Mach 10 and grab the stringer out of it.
did?
And then insert it into my Mach 7.
No way.
Hoping that as I pushed it in, it would go straight. Sometimes it would curve up and start poking through the deck skin.
How'd you get it through it?
Yeah, so the idea,
You couldn't heat it up.
nah, what did we do? I think what we did was initially you'd heat up a screwdriver and you'd push it as far into the tail as as it would go, depending on how long it was. And that would give you maybe like 10 inches of depth. And then you'd start pushing that thing in there. And if you really wanted to get high tech, you would put a nail through the deck so that if the thing started to curve up, the nail would keep it down.
What?
And you put another nail there and then just guide the stringer in.
And then seal the end.
And then you'd seal the end off. You'd put wax paper and an iron over that hole that you created.
No way.
And take a little chunk of foam and put it over there and like melt it on there to seal it up. Or you could use hot glue.
So couldn't you just tell Moray to make you a board with a stringer in the Mach 7?
Well, they didn't have tubular stringers back then, and they the production, it just wasn't an option back then. Like we weren't offered the option to get custom made boards.
Where were they made then?
They were still made in Tijuana. So this is all through the 90s. So we eventually got to the point where stringers came out, tubular stringers. I don't know if this is the case, but Custom X I remember coming out with a tubular stringer. Custom X, I also remember one of the first brands to come out with a bat tail board. That was a design that Mike Stewart developed, and I don't know who else, but I think Custom X was the first to market with that tail design.
Was that Dave and Debbie?
It was Debbie for sure. I'm not sure Dave Kniff was involved at that point. But in any case, there was famously a photo in Bodyboarding magazine back then of Mike Stewart with a bat tail prototype that he had
Mach
that
7.
Maury made for him. And he was on the beach at Off the Wall with a towel over the tail.
Hiding it.
And there was all kinds of discussion over this new tail design. Looked like a bat wing. And then eventually that became standardized.
Bodyboarding magazine was out then.
Bodyboarding magazine, came out in '85, the first issue. And
so did they post a picture?
They did. They posted the picture, but Mike had a towel over the...
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, okay. So there was a lot going on by then. By the 90s, things were really, really accelerating quickly. And our cell core was kind of like an alternative to polyethylene because it was very stiff. And some people liked it, but it would get waterlogged and very heavy. So Maury started hunting around for their designers started hunting around for different materials. And there was a guy named Steve Moran that was a key designer for Maury at the time. And he sourced out polypropylene. And other foams too, like this material they called strand foam, which they used in a board they called the Super Mach, that did not last. It wasn't a good core. I remember getting waterlogged and heavy. But polypropylene stuck. It was an extruded version of polypropylene at that time, and everybody started adopting polypropylene boards.
And when was this?
This was like 93-ish, early 90s again, but polyethylene boards were still in the market, but they were considered like a step below polypropylene boards because polypro was stiff and light.
Yeah.
And it laminated well. The deck skins and slicks would laminate really well to polypropylene.
Because I remember my Mantas in the early 90s, like Terry Fleming had polypro,
Yes.
but it was a really, really stiff.
Well, the thing about Mantas is they also used like a PVC bottom, just like that turbo that we saw.
What it was, yeah.
So it's a very hard bottom. So the Mantas were known for being durable boards because they had those harder bottoms on them. And then Manta also experimented with different deck materials. They had like this sort of like an EVA deck skin that was a little squishy, which they could get away with because they had that stiff bottom. And it was kind of more comfortable for a lot of people.
And they had cross-link on most of their boards.
Yeah, so that was it was a cross-link, like a squishy EVA sort of. I don't know if it was actually, it might have been cross-link.
Yeah, the Sabre.
Which is a
I remember my Sabre
foam.
board it was so stiff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
Sabre was a
lasted
great
years.
seller for them.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all this innovation was coming into bodyboarding, extruded polypropylene. We had stringers, we had channels, we had, the rails getting more refined. And then sometime around 2000, the year 2000, end of the 90s, the market started going towards thinner boards. Everybody thought thinner, more responsive, turn better.
That wasn't a result of Dow, like, providing cores that were thinner?
No, because it was polypropylene boards.
Yeah, for some reason I thought it had to do with the manufacturing of the core.
No, I think a lot of this initiated in Australia with the riders who were at the top of the game back then. Guys like Ryan Hardy and Ben Player, Toby Player, Mitch Rollins, all these guys that were cream of the crop back then. They were going with thinner boards. So bodyboards really quickly went from those 65 millimeter thick boards down to 56, 55 millimeters, like a lot thinner.
Yeah.
That's pretty dramatic change. And boards got really responsive and rode really well for riders that weren't heavier.
Yeah, who was making them back then for those guys?
Yeah, so it was, all the
Mez
companies,
yet?
you had, NMD, VS, you had
So it
Hot
was Mez?
Buttered. Well, Nick Meseritz, started NMD. All the brands started going thinner and thinner and thinner. So, so boards, they were also starting to experiment at that point with different contours on the bottom, but it wasn't a big thing just yet. So still standard 2 channels, graduated channels were kind of the status quo for a long time. But there came a time when extruded polypropylene, the companies that manufacture for the bodyboard industry said, no more, this bodyboard industry isn't big enough for us, because that's packaging foam is what it was.
Right.
So they went, we're not going to supply these rectangular blanks to the bodyboard industry. It's not worth our while to make it. So then mad scramble to find beaded polypropylene. And there's some pluses and minuses to beaded, which is still out on the market today. Beaded polypropylene comes in different densities.
So what's the difference between extruded and beaded?
So beaded, extruded was like strands of polypropylene foam laminated together, and it created a different flex pattern that was closer probably to polyethylene. but it was stronger. It was a stronger material, so it didn't
lighter.
buckle as easily.
But
It was lighter, yeah, notably lighter. So beaded polypropylene was a material, I'm not sure who pioneered it. It seems to me Manta had something to do with that, but maybe Terry Fleming will watch this and fill me in, or somebody else. But beaded polypro came into the fray in the mid-2000, 2000 knots, as they call it, whatever, 2005, 2004, somewhere in there. And beaded polypro initially was just like, there were no different densities. It was just they took what they could get.
Yeah.
But then later they were able to tweak the density. You could get a 1.2, 1.5, or a 1.9. And there were even a few boards with 2.1.
So how'd they do that?
It's just how much they compress it. It was made in like a compression mold. So they would inject these beads of polypropylene into this mold and compress it. And my guess is how much they compressed it determined the density of that core. So
it's not more beads in a 1.9?
Yeah, maybe, because you're
beads in a
compressing it more.
1.2.
Maybe, yeah, you're compressing it more in a 1.9. There'd be more beads. That makes sense.
More air bubbles in a...
Yeah,
in a
1.2.
Yeah, 1.2.
Yeah, more air, less foam. But so that affects the stiffness of the core.
We should have bought the core.
So
Core's over there.
yeah, you could you go grab it? Vicky's going to grab our little core samples. But now at the point where we are in bodyboarding, what are the trends in 2026? So many years later. Well, as I mentioned, kind of the cream of the crop is beaded polypropylene. And this, thank you, Vicki. This is kind of the three cores you see in bodyboards nowadays.
You can hear this. It's like
it looks
like the Costco coffee cup.
It looks like styrofoam because it is. That's expanded polystyrene, EPS. So cheapo boards are made out of this, the kind you get at the corner shop.
Wavestorm, Costco,
Walmart. They're just made to be cheap.
Yeah.
Then you move on to polyethylene. It's still really good, performs great, does get soft in warm water, but it's a cellular core. There's cells of foam.
Yeah.
Same material they've been making bodyboards with since the 70s. And then you move to the beaded polypro. You can see it's beads of foam.
Compact,
Very similar to this,
but
it has a polymer injected into it that keeps it from snapping in half so easily like this.
Easy to
Not
see,
saying that you can't snap it in half. You certainly can. Mike Stewart famously went over the falls or airdropped at Chopes last year and like cracked his board open. We've all seen that happen. Enough force will do that to anything, I think. And then every board on the market, basically outside of these entry-level boards, has a stringer or multiple stringers.
Here.
And even stringers now come in different varieties. That's what the stringer looks like. That's a graphite rod.
Yes.
Yeah.
Metal.
Yeah. it's light. So yeah, there's different materials that they're made of, but they're all essentially made to be like that, stiff. So some companies have experimented with, like BZ had the variable flex stringer. It had a tip on it that was flexible, so the very end of it would bend up and down, but the middle of it was rigid and stiff.
And some of the Chinese manufacturers use wood.
Yeah, so wooden stringers.
So they're really heavy.
That's right. Yeah, so beware, not all stringers are created equal. Yeah, so that's wood.
And then there's the mesh.
Yeah, there's the mesh, the performance chicken wire, which is still used in boards today.
Is this the exact mesh?
That's it. It's just plastic. You can buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's. I mean, we have some in our shed at home.
Yeah, we do. Keep the rats away.
Yeah, that's exactly what they use. Funny. It's nothing special.
Yeah.
And they
layer it.
Yeah, they layer
deck mesh, slick mesh.
So there's been a whole bunch of tweaking of existing technologies over the years. You know, there's with the Brody Asia factory, there's Tension Tech, which is a layer of foam laminated onto mesh that's very thin that can be put under a deck skin for additional stability. There's been wishbone shaped stringers. Pride has a few like that. there's been
SGC,
there's been the retractable, geez, the interchangeable ISS interchangeable stringers, which was a trend for a while there, for a minute.
So if you're in warm water, you put the stringer in, and when you come to cold water, you take it out.
Yeah, so there was a sheath inserted into the board in the manufacturing process, and you could,
like this.
you could unscrew it, pull the stringer out, and then, as Vicki said, put a soft stringer or a medium stringer or a stiff stringer in there based on the water temperature.
And it was only based on the water temperature, right? Nothing
Pretty
else?
much. Well, yeah, I guess if
With
you were
big
doing
wave,
stand-up
little wave.
riding, you would want a really stiff, I don't know.
Small waves, stiffer.
I never used that system. I did try a Hubbard's board once that had the ISS system, and on the tail there was a plug, a plastic plug, where you would open this little kind of like a door, I guess you could say, and pull the stringer out. And every time I duck dive, my knee would just grind into that thing. Ended up with a cut on my knee from duck diving, the one session I had on it. But the big problem, as I saw it, was that ISS, as a company, was licensing out this technology to different bodyboard brands who were making the boards with the ISS system. And they were charging like $80 for the stringer. Now, a stringer costs like probably $2 or $3 to make. So granted, they had to put this little flange on the end of it to make it removable, but I mean, let's say $5 to make it, and they're charging at retail $80. So people didn't want to buy extra stringers for their boards. And how many people realistically are traveling to different water temperature locations? Some,
even pros
who travel, but most people not so much. So so then that trend came and went, and the latest trend in bodyboards here in 2026, what do you think it is, Vicki? What's your opinion? Well, that's one, but that's not the one I was thinking of.
I don't know.
I don't mean to stump you on camera, but it's
at?
Bottom contours.
Oh, yeah.
Bottom contours is where the most innovation has come in bodyboards, to me.
Every line has a quad.
Or a 5-channel. You got the Sci-Fives from Hubbard's. You got the single to double concave from Pride. We, in our Tribe line, we have quad channel boards.
Yeah, and what's Tanner's called?
So Tanner's has the hover vent system. Which is, you know, like I don't even know how to describe it, but it has the vent. Mike Stewart has the vent channels, which are wide at the entry of the water and narrow. It's the Venturi effect, hence the name vent channels.
Well, remember back in the day, one of our biggest sellers was the Ion board.
The Ion, which good point, which was a very aggressively multi-channeled bottom. They were maybe one of the first that had such a channel system that I can recall.
People love those.
They did.
Here we are.
Yeah, and it's come back full circle. So they were ahead of their time, right? Now the market's very accepting of these multi-channel boards, and virtually almost every company has an option like that. Now for Tribe, we've also experimented with different densities of core in your board and my board. We've tried a 1.2. You had the Bungee. I had the Real Deal. 1.2 density worked great in everything except the very warmest water, in which it kind of got a little flexy. So now we've settled that.
Fisker. We got the new channel system on the Fisker.
And the Fisker's a PE core board with 2 stringers, but it has a quad channel. So great for cool water temperatures. So what we always try to do is educate people that, hey, if you're in a cool water environment, let's say water below 72 degrees, polyethylene works really well.
It's a great California core.
Yeah, just as good, or anywhere cold, Pacific Northwest, Northeast. The point is that polyethylene, in my opinion, although it's a little heavier, works as good as polypropylene.
Yeah, but people think because it's cheaper that, it's not as good. I need to get a more expensive board with a polypro core board.
That is the misconception for sure. But here's your Tribe Valkyrie, for example. Notice the sticker that indicates the single stringer in the board is further down. Why is that, Vicki? Explain that to our viewers.
Especially for me being a female, and maybe for the Groms, I feel like a stiff board's not great for me. I like a little flex, so we decided to try a half stringer or a 3/4 stringer. So we have a little flex in the nose, so it's better on those scoop and those bottom turns. And, you know, cutbacks too, just getting that rock.
How was that?
Rock.
So the board has all the premium materials. It has a 1.5 core, which we've found works in all water temperatures
so I can
very well.
take it to Fiji. I can ride it in California.
Yeah.
Wave pools. Yeah.
And it has the mesh and the Surlyn with the quad channel setup, but has the 3/4 stringer so you can still flex the nose. Now, of course, Maury experimented in some way with the Mach VF, variable flex, which had score lines up in the nose. That was a polyethylene core board way back in the day. No stringer in it, but allowed the nose to flex a little. So it's sort of a throwback to that. My board has the same idea with the 3/4 stringer. So the nose will flex, but it's a 1.5 density core. I like standard channels because I drop knee a lot. I don't like the multi-channel setup for the way I ride, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't work for you.
And let's talk about that, the quad versus the standard.
Yeah, good point. So people ask that a lot.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the benefit of a quad channel?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it gives you the stick to the wave as better, like a crescent, means the normal 2-channel.
You don't think it sticks as good?
I don't think it sticks as good. I think
Really?
it's faster.
And why is it faster?
I don't know.
then?
I don't know the technical side of it.
But you think it tends to, you don't have as good of edge control?
It depends on the length of the channel and the depth of the channel.
Okay.
But I don't know. I like this, you know,
Okay.
based on all the boards that I've tried. But I think it's a little looser. No, that's
Well,
not the point
a bat
of it.
tail for sure is
Yes,
a looser
right.
tail design.
Yeah.
A little harder to hold an edge.
But technically, you describe the difference. What you know.
Well, I mean, the marketing idea is more traction on the wave face when you have multiple channels that lock the water flow into this laminar flow straight off the tail. You have little edges that help you keep you from sliding side to side. They lock you into a specific track. That's the theory behind multi-channel boards.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is that unless you're maybe Tanner McDaniel or, you know, a pro.
By the way, sidebar, while
Yeah.
you mention that, let's break away really quick to Tanner McDaniel. I talked to him the other day
yeah.
about his
Good
board
call.
design. So let's switch to that real quick
Yeah.
and we'll be right back. Yes, right now because I have Tanner McDaniel here at the office. Tanner McDaniel, of course, a world champion bodyboarder who lives in this area. Good
doing?
to see you, Tanner.
You too.
He popped in to pick up some gear and I hijacked him.
Yeah.
Into talking about board design. Let's just get straight into it. First of all, we'll start with some of these science boards that have some pretty unique features on them. The first board we're going to pick up is this board, and this is the what, Tanner? Let's talk about this one.
This is the HSV.
Okay, what can you tell us about design features of the HSV?
So the HSV is abbreviation for hover and then the SV channel.
Okay.
Hover channel system, SV tail.
Okay. So
I'll point
what can you tell us about the tail design and what it does?
So this tail here is it stemmed from the concept series boards that Mike was working on over the last couple years, and he sent me a board with this almost this exact same tail and channel system to try about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And I loved it. Let me think about how to phrase it correctly. The channel system goes all the way through here, and there's actually like, I'll try to show you on the camera, and it's really flat compared to like other boards all the way through to the nose.
Okay.
So there's like almost like a little bit of like a reverse, not a reverse concave, but less curvature through here.
Okay.
So it hovers really well through like flat sections of the wave.
Got it.
And this channel, or not the channel, this tail is really sharp. It's almost like a full crescent.
Right.
And I was expecting it to ride the polar opposite of how it does in reality.
Okay.
I thought it'd be really sticky and like
hard to release.
Yeah, like it wouldn't turn like this as well.
Yeah, it wants to track.
It would lock in and just go down the line really fast.
Yeah, they call that cavitation. It wants to track and stay in the direction that it's going.
Yeah, but what it actually feels like is more like a bat tail.
Okay.
Which could be the combination with the channel system going all the way through up here, so it kind of like hovers.
Yeah, that surprises me. I would have expected, just like you, that it just has a ton of bite, like really good for sucky, barrely waves, but when you really want to release it and do those kind of maneuvers, it would be hard to release, but you say it's completely like that.
It's totally the opposite, which I thought was interesting. It feels like riding a bat tail or like the delta tail that we have on some of the science boards.
Yeah.
It gets really good lift, and it's amazing when it's like kind of flat sections of waves.
Wow.
Like, I love riding this board like out the back of gravels.
Okay.
Or, like it's the best way I've been able to describe the board is like how surfers have like a fish for like when it's softer.
Sure.
And it's like it floats through the water really well, and it's really responsive and like releases really well.
Okay.
Like, taking off on like a flat start to a wave with a soft section in front of you, this is like
it rockets right around it. Wow.
Nothing compares to it.
Okay, I like that.
So that's been my board that I'll ride like for those kind of waves.
And this is mesh single stringer and is it a 1.9?
Yes.
Core. Okay.
1.9.
So high density polypropylene. So that's the HSV. Then we have, let's pull out a board from the Concept series. This is the, what is this?
That looks like the Flow.
But this seems to be where bodyboard design is going. And Mike has been one of the guys at the forefront of this multi-channel setups. That's been the latest. 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was the stringer system, the ISS.
Yep.
And everybody kind of jumped in, and then most people pulled back.
Yeah.
So now it seems to be the messing with the bottom contours.
Yeah. That's been... Mike's focused pretty heavily on that the last few years.
Okay.
I'll actually grab my board that I just picked up today.
Yeah, sure. Let's see it.
So I can show you what...
So I have a few more here.
Yeah. I don't see... Oh, that looks like it right there. Well, I'll grab my board for...
Okay.
Just for... So this is what I'm going to be bringing to Hawaii to ride in the pipe comp. This is the Tri-Quad Limited model.
So again, we got the tri as in 3 separate little crescents.
Yep.
That's the tri, and the quad is the
quad
4
vent
channels.
channel here. And this looks, this is the same setup as on that. So
got it.
I got, the first time I rode this board, Mike had been testing this channel and tail system for a little while and was like, you got to get on it, you got to try it. Like, I really want to figure this out and I want your feedback on it.
Yep.
And it was when people were starting to bring out the new channel stuff, and I kind of thought it was gimmicky. I was kind of like, I'm not buying into it, so I was kind of like putting it off a little bit.
Right.
And then finally I was, okay, I'll try it. And I rode it for like a week and a half, and I didn't notice that much of a difference, just riding in super average waves.
Yep.
But once I got it onto a wave that had a little bit more curve in it, a little bit more of a sucky wave, best board
Night and day difference.
Like, hands down the best board I ever rode.
Wow.
That was the board I took to Eureka the first year I won that contest.
Okay.
The year I won that contest. And I said, that's the board. Don't that's what
Don't change
That's what we're
anything.
doing now.
Right.
If you need me to like take the exact dimensions from this board, I will. Like, make that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I've been riding that since. So,
And you haven't changed anything since?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to hear you say, because a lot of people, like myself included, I constantly make little tweaks to my boards because my riding has changed over the years. I'm less focused on some parts of my riding and more focused on others now. So I change my dimension. That hasn't been the case with you. You're obviously trying to ride at the absolute peak performance. I've noticed though, Tanner, that you're drop kneeing a lot more now, a lot more, and you're very, very talented as a drop kneer.
Well, thank you.
So this is kind of getting a little off the track here before we finish with these other 3 boards, but is this going to affect your choice in board design?
You know, I don't think it will because it seems like my board works well for drop knee.
Obviously watching you,
I'll use both. I kind of go back and forth between the HSV and the tri-quad system.
Yeah.
They both work great.
Yeah.
Again, the HSV is great when the waves are flat. It hovers, even drop knee.
Yeah.
You can get like that little extra glide in.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like kind of surfing a
bowly beach rig.
Yeah, like a roll-in kind of wave.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had like good drop kneers tell me that the board works good for drop knee.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't design the board for the purpose of being like a drop knee board or like an all-around board.
Okay.
But it seems to work really well for it.
So you design it with prone riding in mind because that's how you won your world title and so forth. But it just happens to work great for drop knee.
Yeah.
It's a side benefit that you didn't intend necessarily, but it's working.
And the board is like a high-performance prone board, but because it's centered around like drive down the line, it holds a line really well.
Yeah.
So it's more forgiving for drop knee because it like naturally wants to like get up and go down the line, so you don't have to worry about sliding out as much.
Yeah.
Is my theory at least.
Did you drop knee as a kid much? Because I've seen the footage of you as a kid. I never saw you drop knee.
No, never.
So this is a new thing that you've just, to make things interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I would
mixing it
always
up.
like get up, drop knee, and mess around a little bit, but
Yes.
I never like, I would never in my life up until last year did I have a session where I rode more than 50% of my waves drop knee.
Yeah,
Whereas
and now
last
that
year,
happens all the time.
I had like countless sessions last year where I don't even think I proned a wave.
Hold on. Did you make the final in the California Classic in the drop knee?
Yeah, I did.
And did you win it?
I did win it.
There you go. So obviously that skill has been there dormant for many years with Tanner.
I can't take too much credit in that. The waves were tricky, and I
Yeah.
was up against guys who were better than me at drop knee, and I just,
Well, that's arguable because I've seen you drop knee as good as anyone. Okay, warp. This is the warp board. This is kind of a unique board from Science.
It sure is.
You can see that unique tail design. We have a video on our listing on the site where Mike actually talks about this design. Have you ever ridden anything like this?
The closest board I've rode to what this looks like is just the Delta Tail board.
Okay, yeah.
But this is like another step further.
And by the way, for you listening on the audio version, this is a lot of video content, so use your imagination. Keep going, sorry.
Well, just imagine like the most out there looking tail you can think of and then tone it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But, I haven't rode one, and Mike's been trying to get me to ride one.
Yeah.
And I'm like down to try because he seems to love it. And other people who've ridden the board apparently love it.
Well, it seems like the inverse of your HSV, because the HSV has kind of these multiple channels, but in a full crescent, where this is like the full crescent reverse, but it's a scalloped tail with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 very defined points on the tail. And the first thing that comes to my mind is nut buster.
Yes.
If you do a big invert and land, that point is right in your crotch, man.
It's dangerous. But, people have said that about like bat tails and the Delta tails.
Yeah.
Like, I can't ride that because it hurts my balls. when I
Yeah,
ride that.
right.
And, I mean, I grew up, I like kind of learned how to bodyboard on a Delta tail board.
Right.
So I kind of don't think
So
I've
it doesn't
noticed that.
happen
Yeah,
to
like,
you.
I don't know. I've figured out how to not have that happen.
Well, Jeff Hubbard sired 2 children, so obviously the bat tail hasn't rendered him. Hasn't rendered him.
Everything works. So.
Right, yeah, exactly. Everything works. Okay, unique board there from Science. Let's go for this one. We got another one here. This is, we already went through this one. This is the...
Is that the limited? Yeah.
Yeah, this is the limited, which you had in the plastic wrap.
Yeah, I just picked mine up today.
So we went through that one, and then finally this board, and this is the blade kind of reminds me of your HSV in terms of the tail. Is it a similar design to yours, just minus the Tanner McDaniel name?
So this, I'm just double checking everything. So I believe that the tail on my HSV is the same as this. And or it is the same. So when we were doing the HSV, we kind of just blended the two things together to fit onto my shape.
That's a fairly common thing, I think, with a lot of brands. They'll put out let's call it a generic version of a design and then a signature version where you can add your little personal touches.
Yep.
It may have the exact same design in terms of maybe the tail, but maybe the deck contouring might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So that seems like what we got going on here. Some little thumb grooves along the rail, hand wells, as I call them, up on the corners, really nice for grip. So yeah, Mike's had a lot of the multi-channel stuff going on. Hubboards, Pride, they all have their versions of it. We do with our Tribe brand. That seems to be the current design trend. What do you see happening in the future with board design? What's the next frontier? Is it core materials? Is it stiffeners inside the board? Do you have any idea where you think things are going to go?
I think it seems like there's a little bit of a push for materials.
Yeah.
I was riding a 1.5 PP for a little while.
Yep.
And I still have a couple boards that I'll take out that are 1.5 when the water gets a little cooler.
Yeah.
Just for certain waves, I like to ride it.
Yeah.
And that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's necessarily like new tech, but it seemed like there was a little bit of a resurgence in like trying the different density cores and stuff like that. So it seems like there's a shift kind of heading that direction.
Yes.
And because
the customers are more savvy to that too.
Yeah.
Because, before they would just think, oh, Polypro, I want a Polypro board. But now they're diving a little deeper into what's the density of the Polypro and for what's the best for where I live, waves I ride, how I ride, water temperature.
Yeah. And I rode a 1.5 board here through winter.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yes.
I loved it. And it broke in really nice. I started riding it in the middle of winter and it broke in perfectly.
Yeah.
And that's great because, we're in Southern California, but it's still, the water gets cold.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a 1.5 fan. My boards are 1.5. Yeah. I've tried 1.2. Worked great here, but when I like one board for everything. I'm one of those guys. I don't like to switch it up. When I go to the tropics, I would tweak that thing out pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
So I've personally found, for me, 1.5 is the perfect core for all different water temperatures.
Yeah.
Rocker is another thing. Like for me, I like kick in the nose. Most people like a board pancake flat. Is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you like to be able to bend the rocker into whatever shape you want as you ride.
I like
but
it.
You want it flat.
Yeah, I like it like baseline flat and enough flex where I can like crank on it a little bit because I like when a board will bend and then snap.
Yes.
Kind of like if you flex it, you pull up on it, and then it wants to like spring back into action.
Well, along those lines, the one last question I'll ask you, this is about thickness because I know you and Craig a while back, you brought an old Mach 7 down to Salt Creek and you rode that thing, and that thing was thick. Like if we measure old boards, Vicki and I talked about this at the beginning of this podcast, old boards, I measured a Mach VF that we got for a VBC person. We're shipping it to him. I measured 64 millimeters that board was. And that was normal thickness in the 80s and through the early 90s. We all rode boards that thick. Now boards like this one, for example, is probably somewhere around 53 or 54 millimeters thick. 10 to 12 millimeters thinner than boards were back in the day. Is that something you think about when you design boards, how thick it is, or is just the standard thickness now just fine with you?
To be honest, I haven't dealt with the thickness of my boards pretty much since we were first doing the first designs of my board. We wanted to bring it as thin as we could. Because going off topic a little bit, well, kind of off topic, I rode I don't know if it's a Pipo or an Elia. Whatever one is smaller and you're supposed to ride prone. Someone gave me one and that they had handmade and I rode it once and I was like, tripping out on how thin it was and how fast it went.
It's like plywood. It's
Yeah.
literally a 1/4 inch thick, right?
And I don't know, like it just got me thinking like, man, like we could make these boards.
Yeah.
If we could make them thinner like that, I don't see a downside really. If it doesn't affect the durability.
Right.
So we brought the board that we were designing for me in quite thin.
Yep.
I don't know off the top of my head. Like I said, I haven't dealt with the thickness of my boards in a long time.
Yeah.
I just get the same thing
Sure.
every time because
Because it works.
I love it.
Sure.
But back to the Mach 7.7 thing, I had never rode that board before. I'd never rode a board like that really. And it was fun. I was tripping out on like because the thing was beat, like
Yep.
like totally waterlogged.
Yeah, it was an
and
old board,
it was,
right?
You know, it had been well loved.
30-year-old board, probably. Yeah.
And I thought it was just going to be like a pool noodle, like just totally floppy.
Yeah.
And it kind of was, like the flex was like, but it was cool how it like seemed to flex throughout the whole board in a good
Yes.
way.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Well, you were talking about that snap. You like
Yeah.
that snap. And back then they were PE core boards with no stringers.
Yep.
So we got that snap. That was great. You would go into a high-speed cutback and you could literally bend that thing into an arc and it would turn on a dime.
Yeah.
Or off the bottom in a really sucky wave. You could really bend it and scoop up into the barrel easily. But the durability sucked. Boards
Yeah.
back then, I would spend 3 months on the North Shore, and my Mach 7s would last,
Like a week.
2-3 weeks. I remember one time paddling out at Insanities right next to Off the Wall.
Yeah.
Brand new board. I had just unwrapped it, waxed it up,
Yeah.
and I paddled, and I got nailed by the lip duck diving and creased the board all the way through.
Oh.
Brand new first. I hadn't even caught a wave.
Oh no.
So yeah, but luckily I had 24 boards a year from Maury at that time in my allocation, so it was no problem. But yeah, the durability suffered with those old cores, but we did have that snap, and that's something that I always aspire to with my board designs is I like to have that old school flex, but in a modern construction.
Yeah.
So
Modern
that's where
shape and like
Yeah.
durability.
So-
I know not old people, but people who were around
Yeah.
for like the Dow cores.
Sure, yeah.
They rave about it.
Yes.
I never rode a Dow cord
Board,
board.
Right.
And so people go on about how good the material is.
Yeah,
but I don't have a reference, so.
No, I get it. I mean, we have a lot of old schoolers that buy bodyboard gear these days. That's a big part of the market.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, they sort of like pine for those days when boards had that snap, but they want a modern board. So high volume boards have come back into vogue.
Yeah.
You know, the thickness, we started this little sidebar here about thickness of boards. I noticed thickness is making a bit of a comeback because a lot of these older guys are heavier, bigger dudes.
Yeah.
And Science, just because you're here and you ride for Science, has, of course, the style loaded HV, and they have the Thunder, which are high volume boards.
Yeah.
And so a lot of brands, not just Science, have high volume options too. So those options are out there if people want to ride those old school kind of feel boards with the thicker cores.
I always imagined that the 1.5 core was the closest thing to like an old Dowd core that I've rode. I don't know if that's got any merit.
Yeah, it does. For me, it's a 1.2. I think the 1.2 Polypro, to me, mimicked the original Mach 7s that didn't have stringers or mesh or anything in them. But, everyone's going to have a different feel, and the length of the board is going to factor into that. One thing I noticed back in those days was drop kneeing was a little easier on those bigger boards because they were so stable and so buoyant. Bottom turning, not so much on a big wave because you really had to try to sink that edge in, sometimes even grab the rail.
You see people grabbing rail front side.
Yeah.
Like the old Jack Lindholm.
That's right. Jack Lindholm, Ben
yanking up
Severson style.
Yeah.
But the modern boards being thinner, once you're on the wave and you're up in your stance, they really knife into the wave really well.
Yeah.
So it's great to see board design, changing, adjusting to not only the market, but also to, people's ability. Like, guys weren't hitting the lip on 8 to 10 foot waves like you guys do. 30 years ago. You'd break a couple guys, maybe Seamus Mercado, Troy Helm, to name a few. They would hit the lip on giant waves. But the rest of us it was more self-preservation mode.
Fair enough.
Whereas guys, you know, in your era, you guys are just hitting anything and everything. So, you know, board design has adjusted accordingly. So it's great to see that evolution continue.
That's one of the reasons why I don't ride no stringer.
Oh.
Like, I love no stringer boards.
Really?
Right when you get them in the first, like, period of their life.
Yes.
But once they are dead, they're dead.
Yeah, because they'll just hinge on any crease that you get in them.
Once it goes in a little bit, like reverse rocker a little bit, it's done.
It's done. Yeah.
Which is a bummer because I love no stringer boards.
Right. Wow.
I had a couple boards that I just cut the stringer out of when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because it was a new board and I couldn't bend it. So I was like, I'm just gonna pull the stringer out of it. And it was sick.
That's funny.
I actually would, once the board was broken in, I could put the stringer back in.
That
was before ISS too.
Well, we used to do the opposite in the 80s. The first stringer board ever come out was the Mach 10. It had 3 graphite stringers that were slats, like they looked like yardsticks, like metal yardsticks. Ooh. They were flat. And so I used to dissect my Mach 10 and I'd pull that slat out and then I'd put it into my Mach 7 because the Mach 7s didn't have a stringer, and I would test it out. The hard part was always trying to feed that slat into the tail of the board. You'd have to heat the thing up and it would inevitably bend up and start pushing through the deck because it would never go in straight. So you would try to core out a little channel for it, but it would never work because the thing was flat. So, but yeah, I did the opposite. I put stringers in boards and you were taking them out of boards. So that's where we are in 2026 with board design. Well, cool.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I love to see the changes. I could, you know, tell you all the trends over the years, and we'd be here forever. But I do appreciate your time, Tanner. It's really good to get your perspective as a young guy on where board design is going. And, you know, we'll revisit this in 5 years and see if things have changed. And who knows what we're going to be riding.
Maybe I'll be on the high volume.
That's right. He might be on the high volume. He's just going to get older and fatter, right?
I was thinking about it in the water yesterday, actually. Just like, maybe I'll go up a half an inch on my boards.
Yeah, man. Hey, a lot of guys, I mean, I remember when there was a trend where Ryan Hardy famously switched from 42 to a 43, and he talked about how he loved the added length. It just gave him more of a rail line, and the thing just carved a little bit better for him. So I think it's always good to try, maybe go up 1 inch or down 1 inch, and you know, just see how does this affect my riding. You know?
Yeah. Well, I ride a 40.75.
And how tall are you, and how much do you weigh?
Like 5'9". I probably weigh 140.
Yeah, so 5'9", 140, and you're riding a 40.75.
Yeah, and I got to 40.75 because I was riding, I think, 40 for a while, and then I got a 41.
Okay.
Stock board, and I was like, this is sick. Like, I'm going so much faster.
Yeah.
But I just like lost like just a little bit of the control, like in the pocket.
Yes.
Going vertically was a lot harder.
Right.
So I got a 40.75 custom, and it was like the perfect blend of.
Yeah, it was just the right length.
Yeah.
I've done the same. I've gone up to 42, down to 41, and I love the control prone on a 41 for me. And now I'm 5'7", 160. Okay. So I ride a bigger board than you. I'm shorter than you, but I like a longer board, but I drop knee.
Yeah.
So what I found was 42, great for drop knee, but for prone, in certain situations, it felt too big.
Yeah, like you can't steer.
Yeah, so now I've settled in the middle at 41.5. That seems to be working for me, but who knows, man? As I get older, my riding maybe changes. I might go to a bigger board. I don't know. I'm trying never to gain weight, of course. I'm always working out, but so the weight factor isn't it. It's more like my riding style. I think I drop knee a little more than I did in my pro days. So I want something that's going to work well for drop knee, and my designs have kind of tweaked a little bit in that direction. but still prone. Yeah.
Do you like ride pretty much the same stuff that you sell?
Yeah, I ride a stock board right out of the wrapper.
Nice.
So you know how the process works, though. Every time a new batch of boards is made at the factory, you have to order them months in advance. So if I'm going to make any design changes, I'll literally send to the factory to make me a prototype, and I'll ride it until I'm satisfied with the design, and then I'll say, make this as my next stock board.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll ride that maybe 2 or 3 years until I tweak the design.
Yep.
But the one I'm riding now is literally an out-of-the-wrapper board from the factory that's on our shelf. Anyone can buy it.
Yeah, I would ride, I mean, my boards are the same as stock boards. Only reason I don't ride stock boards is because I ride a 40.75.
Oh yeah,
which is a weird
It is an
size to
odd length.
Yeah.
You don't see many of those on the market.
Otherwise, I would just do stock boards too.
Yep.
So
it is essentially a stock board just scaled down slightly from a 41.
Yeah, just a quarter inch off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's this. Everything's the same otherwise.
Same thing, and it's pretty quick turnaround of like when I first tried the HSV stuff. It was like, I like it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And the next batch of production boards had that.
Yeah. It's. I think it's easier too to make your design a stock model, because once you tweak it, the factory has all your specs. It's in a file, and they use a CNC machine so they can cut it exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, back in the old days, referring back to when I was a pro with Maury, we would go to their, they had a lab, so to speak. This is more when Mattel owned the brand. Okay. We would literally go up to El Segundo, to Mattel's big office building, and they had like a kind of a lab area downstairs, and we would make tweaks to it, but it was all completely analog. So if we changed the template, they would have to put a piece of wood down. They would have to trace out that template, and then they would have to send that to the production line to copy. There was no CNC back then. Stuff gets lost in translation when there's no digital files and precise measurements. So sometimes you'd come out with your design with the guys in the lab here in El Segundo, and then it would get made at the factory, which at that time was in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And the board would come out, and it wouldn't quite be right. And you'd be like, "What happened? Did the wooden template break?" But
just gave you something else.
A lot of stuff can get lost, or at least it could back then. But now it's very precise, and they really dial in, and like every board's spot on, man. The quality is amazing too.
Yeah.
Out of the two main factories that are making bodyboards these days, they do such good work. If I went back to when we started this business, man, there was, every brand was different. And some people would say, I want this brand because I got that brand last time and the quality sucked.
Yeah.
Because they were all made at different places and the quality varied from factory to factory. But now it's, it's spot on. Like it's very rare to get a board with a defect.
Yep.
Out of the, and we'll get containers with 1,500 boards in it, and every single board is perfect.
Yeah. All of the boards I get, like I can pretty much pick it up and know it's going to, unless it's something obviously that we're experimenting with, it's something different.
Sure.
But if I get the same limited tri-crescent board.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
I know I can go and ride it in a world tour event.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great.
And I still get customers that'll say, hey man, I just ordered this Tanner board. Can you pick through and look for the one with the most rocker? And
they're all the same.
I always tell them, I'm like, every single board is pancake flat.
Yep.
They're all going to be flat exactly to whatever Tanner's specs are on that board. So there isn't variation from board to board. Maybe if you laid it flat on the ground, it might rise up off the ground 1 millimeter, like the thickness of a dime, and that would be the one with a little bit more rocker.
Yeah, that's when you ride when the waves are soft.
Yeah, but if you put it in a box and put it out in the sun for 10 minutes, it's going to flatten out or whatever. So there's a lot of that from the old school guys. They'll ask for the. Pick the one with the best, whatever. So
it seems like at least from what I can tell, my generation the idea of rocker is like, we don't even think about that.
Yes.
And it seems like, you know, that was something that you guys had to worry about more.
Yeah, and I know, I do. And I always have to have some kick in the nose, so I've worked really hard with the factory to get that right. But yeah, that's something, you know, you guys, it's not really an issue.
It's not. Yeah. And like if I leave my board in the wrong position, it kind of goes like this, I'll just flex it back.
Just bend it back.
Yeah, and it's fine. You know.
So there you go, man. Yeah. That's good. Well, folks, we enjoyed the time with Tanner. I know we almost wrapped it up a minute or two ago, but here we go.
I got time.
I got a lot more good info out of Tanner today. So, yeah, we're going to go back to Vicki and I where we'll wrap up the rest of this. But thanks for your time, Tanner.
Of course.
Appreciate
thanks for having
it.
me.
Right on. And check out their Instagram, Breaking Even TV.
Yes.
They got some merch going now.
We do.
And, of course, Science and Gyroll, who supports Tanner.
Yes.
And you can buy any of these boards online. Check them out. All right, folks, we're back. Hopefully what you saw from Tanner was eye-opening, but we're getting ready to wrap this up, and you wanted to make a point, unless you're Tanner McDaniel.
Well, yeah, you know, these fine little details about a board, like we'll have guys come in and go, I need a 41.25, and nope, I can't do the quad channel, I need, you know, a crescent tail. And I feel like unless you're at the level of Tanner, that half inch, that channel system, it's not going to make a difference for most people.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, we do get a lot. Some people will obsess over a quarter of an inch.
Yeah, even
now,
the thickness.
See my little pinky? Fingernail on my little pinky? That's about a quarter of an inch, man. It ain't going to make a hill of beans worth of difference for 99% of riders. You know, a quarter of an inch, honestly. So I would say don't overthink it. If you're a decent rider, you can learn to ride anything that's roughly in your size range.
Yeah, and of course,
you know?
Tomorrow is going to be different than my trip to Costa Rica to my trip to Fiji. So depending on the wave conditions too, I could go out and hate this board.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm bodyboarding, you know, at freaking, I don't know, Salt Creek versus going to, I don't know, Pipeline, you know.
Well, that's a good point because...
So if I don't like it today, I might like it tomorrow.
Well, that's a good point because the unique thing about this sport, in any wave riding sport, is unlike pickleball or tennis or basketball where the playing surface is static, our playing surface is constantly changing. And, you know, you have to just be versatile and adaptive. And as I said, as long as you get a board that's roughly in your correct size range, and size is really important, chin to kneecap.
Yeah.
Measure the chin with your head straight ahead, down to the middle of your kneecap.
Or
that's the
toe
length.
to belly button.
Not so much, because that measures leg length.
Yeah.
So chin kneecap measures your torso length, which is the way to accurately measure which size board you should be riding. That's not to say that there's people that don't, you know, stick to those guidelines, but to me that's the best guideline to measure board.
And I think I like a bat tail in smaller waves.
Yes, you think.
And I think, you know, but I rode it on some big days and I'm like, yeah, it still works.
So here you go. Here's a person who's been
know?
bodyboarding for more than a quarter of a century and is still figuring it out. And that's one of the fun things about this is that we're all still tweaking. I still tweak my signature board a little bit. And some of that's based on, you know, maybe your riding's changed over the years.
Yeah, that's true.
Or you just figure something out in a session like, if it just had this little tweak. So let's get the next batch done with that little tweak. And then we'll try that for a year and see how that works.
And, you know, I might go out on a small day at T Street and like this bat tail, but not necessarily ride at a cloud break.
Yeah, different conditions.
Yeah, so I like to have a quiver.
So we talked about thickness earlier, and we talked about how 65 millimeters was kind of the standard back in those days. Here's a modern board that's 42 inches long, and this is standard thickness of a high-performance board nowadays, 54 millimeters thick. So that's 11 millimeters thinner than a high-performance board was in the 80s and 90s.
But if you got my 39 inch, it's even thinner.
It's even thinner.
So the smaller the
Yeah,
length,
so
the thinner.
yeah,
You go.
so the market has gotten to that level of sophistication where they're thinning the boards as they get smaller, thickening as they get bigger, and there are high volume boards on the market for the bigger, heavier riders or riders that want that old school feel from the 90s and 80s.
And,
Yeah.
based on their riding style too, are they just carving up the wave and getting barreled? Or
Yeah.
doing airs or.
But the funny thing, Vicki, is the shape, the general shape
Yeah.
of a bodyboard
Right.
has
Stayed the
not
same, yeah.
changed a whole heck of a lot
Maybe some drop knee boards.
in all
or-
those years, but still, it's still
Yeah,
generally
you're
the
right.
same shape. And the polyethylene deck skin that's prevalent on 95% of the bodyboards on the market is still the polyethylene
That's the
deck
Mach
skin.
7 back in the day. Same.
Yeah, same deck skin. So while there has been a lot of innovation in the sport in terms of board construction and design, there's also been not a lot of
Yeah,
innovation.
right.
And some of that is finances. Like companies can't afford to just like order experimental materials and try them out. There's been a few people that have dabbled in it. I remember, for example, Wahoo made these boards with this sort of elastomer material. And Alistair Taylor famously made Science Customs for a long time
Yeah, right.
that had this sort of weird elastomer, sort of plasticky single coating. There was a brand called Wave Skater that made EVA full molded boards. So there's been a few pioneers, I'll call
and
them,
there's inflatables.
that had the guts. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's another category that's opened things up to beginners or people that want a easy to travel with board. They can roll it up and deflate it. But yeah, there's been a few people that were pioneers and said, let's try this. Let's make boards like this. And they stuck their necks out and put it on the market. And sometimes it took off and sometimes it didn't, or it resonated with a certain segment of the market that may not dovetail with our market. Our market may be different than the type of person who would buy, an EVA core board for whatever reason. Maybe we try to sell them and they wouldn't sell that well. But so what I'd like to see moving forward is, people sticking their necks out a little bit and trying different materials, but I don't think that's where our industry is headed. I think people are afraid to stray too far from the norm. I love to see the bottom contour experimentation that's going on now. I think that's really where things are at in terms of trends.
Well, even our customers won't stray from the norm. Like we'll have someone come in that's maybe 120 pounds and, I don't know, 5 feet, and they want a double stringer.
Yeah.
And they're tiny frame, and they're riding California, and it's like, you should maybe try a PE. No, I want a double stringer, because that's the best.
Yeah, they all think that's the best because it's expensive.
Yeah, right.
And it's
and it's
why
the
do you want
norm.
two stringers? Why do you want two?
Yeah.
Oh, because I want the board to last forever. Well, no, then it's not going to perform properly.
Yeah.
It's going to be too stiff. It's like mountain bikers. The guys that are really into the sport, guys and girls, they'll look for a lightweight, strong material. So you're not going to buy a steel mountain bike because it's so heavy.
Yeah, right.
And it's not going to ride as good, right? And you
analogy,
can't get up the hills, and it's
Yeah.
sure it'll handle. You can fly off jumps; it's not going to break.
Yeah.
But if you want a high performance board,
Yeah.
you have to make trade offs, and lighter one stringer instead of two.
Yeah.
You just have to open your mind
Yeah.
to what the experts,
right.
like us,
Right.
are telling you would probably work for
and
you.
just because $130 and not $290 doesn't mean it doesn't work for them.
Right. It
Yeah.
can still be an outstanding
Yeah.
board for the type of waves that you're riding in the location
That's
you
it.
live in.
Yep.
Anything else as we wrap this one up?
Yeah, just, if you have any questions or need a board recommendation, we feel like we know what works. So let
That
us
used to
know.
be our slogan.
Yeah, we know what
We
works.
know what works.
Yeah, been in the industry a while, and we know what works. So
Yeah, we
hit
can-
us up if you have any questions.
And I know it's daunting looking at all the options
Yeah,
on the market
it
now. A lot of people say, I just can't, can't figure out what to get. So where we have a quiz link on our site, and we also have at the bottom of the site it says, tell me which board to get. You click that, you fill out a form, and I actually physically type a response to those.
He's the booger picker.
I'm the booger picker. So I tell people which board will work for them based on their height, weight, location, budget.
Water temp.
And all that stuff.
Ability,
and that's based on 46 years as a bodyboarder, 27 selling bodyboards to people of all shapes and sizes. So I'm happy to help you figure out which board to get, and so is Vicki. So yeah, use those resources, folks. That's the lesson. So if you have any other comments about this, maybe some information to add, put it in the comments below.
Yeah.
We thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. We're now over 10,000 subscribers. Thanks to you for watching.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, all of our clips and all that stuff. We're going to get some more Real Deal shows coming in the coming months. And hopefully some of those vlogs that we put out, which is keeping it real, will involve me actually riding waves once I recover from this.
Well, you're alive and
Busted
walking.
neck,
So.
yeah. So that's a blessing. So for Vicki Reale and myself, thank you once again. We will see you next time on the Real Deal Show. And as always, we'll see you in the...
Not on my waves, though.